Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Qala al-mu'allif rahimahullah wa nafa'ana Allahu bihi wa bikum ajma'in. Al-Hadith al-Thalith wa al-Thalathun. So the author says, may Allah have mercy on him and benefit us through him and through all of you. The 33rd Hadith. عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لو يعطى الناس بدعواهم لادعى رجال أموال قوم ودماءهم لكن البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكره حديث حسن رواه البيهقي وغيره هكذا وبعضه في الصحيحين. So the 33rd hadith is related on the authority excuse me, of Ibn Abbas. May Allah be pleased with him, that the Messenger of Allah, may the blessings and peace of Allah be upon him, said, if people were given on the basis of their claims, then some people would claim the wealth of others and their blood, or we could say and their lives. However, the burden of proof is on the one making a claim, and swearing an oath against that claim is on the one who rejects it. This hadith is declared to be a good hadith related by Imam al-Bayhaqi and others with this particular wording, and most of this wording is found in the Sahihain, or the two sound compilations of Bukhari, Imam Bukhari and Muslim. So he says, second. Sharh. So the commentary, قوله, his saying, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكره, that the burden of proof is on the one advancing a claim, and an oath against that claim is on the one who denies or rejects it. So if I make a claim that, for example, the car you're driving is my car, I have to prove it. I have to come with the title, I have to come with the registration, I have to come with the insurance, etc., to prove that it's my car. The one rejecting the claim just has to reject it. That's not his car, because the car is in his or her possession, and he'll explain this momentarily. So he says, إنما كانت البينة على المدعي لأنه يدعي خلاف الظاهر والأصل براءة الذمة. So he says that rather the burden of proof is on the one advancing a claim, because he's claiming something that's against what's apparent. So if the other person is driving the car and parking it in his driveway, then it appears to be his car. It's not in my possession, and that's why the burden of proof would be on me. وَالْأَصْلُ بَرَاءَةُ الذِّمَّةِ. And the origin in these sort of affairs, non-devotional affairs, is freedom from any further obligation. So the person whose the claim is advanced against has no obligation. وإنما كانت اليمين في جانب المدعى عليه لأنه يدعي ما وافق الأصل وهو براءة الذمة. So rather the swearing an oath comes from the direction of the one the claim is against, because he's claiming something that's in agreement with what is apparent. And so the origin is taking things on their appearances. So it appears like the car isn't mine, so I have to bring the burden of proof. And it appears that the car belongs to the one who's driving it, So that person just has to reject the claim being advanced against them. ويستثنى مسائل, and this is a general rule, and there are exceptions to this general rule. The general rule, again, to repeat, the burden of proof is on one who is advancing a claim, and the one denying that claim just has to swear an oath that the claimant is not speaking truthfully. Now, if the claimant brings proof, then that's another case. يستثنى مسائل, there are exceptions to this rule. فيقبل المدعي بلا بينة فيما لا يعلم إلا من جهته. So the claim of a claimant is accepted with no proof in those areas where the truth can only be confirmed from that person's particular direction. And he'll give examples of this. كدعوى الأبي حاجة إلى عفوا كداعي السفيه التوقاني إلى النكاح مع القرينة. He says, such as the claim of a young person that they need to get married along with some evidence of that. So in other words, they can't control themselves, they can't maintain their chastity, they're going to fall into sin, etc., even though they're beneath the age where marriage is usually sought. وَدَعْوَ الْخُنْثَى الْعُنُوثَةَ وَالذُّكُورَةَ, and the claim of an hermaphrodite that they have both a female and a male sexual organ. So only that claim is something that they're aware of. وَدَعْوَ الطِّفْلِ الْبُلُوغ بِالِاحْتِلَامِ, and the claim of a child that they've reached the age of puberty by experiencing a wet dream. وَدَعْوَ الْقَرِيبِ عَدَمَ الْمَالِ لِيَأْخُذَ النَّفَقَةَ, and the claim of a relative, one who you would be responsible to provide for if they lacked any wealth, that they lack any wealth in order that they can take provisions from someone who is responsible to provide for them. So they don't have to prove they don't have any wealth. Their claim is accepted. And in the other cases also, the claim is accepted on face value. وَدَعْوَ الْمَدِينِ الْإِعْصَارَ فِي دَيْنٍ لَزِمَهُ بِلَا مُقَابِلٍ, and the claim of a person who's indebted, that they're in hardship and therefore they're unable to repay their debt, a debt that's owed to them in which they've put up no collateral, كالصداق, such as a marriage dowry as collateral, صداق الزوجة والضمان, or some third-party guarantor, وقيمة المتلف, or the value of something that they're responsible to they've given to someone to protect. وَدَعْوَ الْمَرْأَةِ انْقِضَاءَ الْعِدَّةِ بِالْإِقْرَارِ أو بِوَضْعِ الْحَمْلِ, or the claim of a woman that her iddah period has passed by the necessary monthly cycles passing, or that her waiting period after a divorce has passed by her confession that the monthly cycles or the periods of purity between monthly cycles have passed, or by her giving birth. So a pregnant woman, the iddah ends when she gives birth. So if she says she's given birth, or if she says that the necessary monthly cycles have passed, or the periods of purity between monthly cycles have passed, then she's taken for her word. She doesn't have to prove that. وَدَعَوَاهَا أَنَّهَا اسْتَحَلَّتْ وَطُلِّقَتْ, or her claim that she was in a period of where she could be lawfully engaged by her husband, and she was divorced during that period. Again, she doesn't have to prove that. وَدَعْوَ الْمُودِ, and in other words, she doesn't have to prove she was not on her monthly cycle, and therefore the divorce would be problematic. So if she claims she wasn't, and that she was divorced, then her claim is accepted and the divorce is accepted as a valid divorce. ودعوى المودع تلف الوديعة أو ضياعها بسرقة ونحوها, or the claimant of someone who was given something as a trust to protect, and then it was either ruined or it was lost due to theft or some similar circumstances. So they were given a book and the pipes burst in their home or their apartment and the book was ruined. So this was a circumstance beyond their control. They're not responsible to return the book or the value of the book. Or someone broke into their home and they stole the book. Oh, that looks interesting. And so if they claim that, they don't have to prove it. Okay, let's see the broken window where the thief got in. So their claim is accepted without proof. So all of these are just examples of the general principle that the burden of proof is on the one advancing the claim, and the oath of denial or falsifying that claim is with the one the claim is advanced against. ويستثنى أيضا القسامة فإن الأيمان تكون في جانب المدعي مع اللوث. So similarly, a case or qasama, one of the meanings, and the one that he implies here, is when there is a death and no one knows who's responsible for that death. So in this case, the oath is accepted from the one that the claim is that claims they didn't kill the person, even though circumstantial evidence might indicate otherwise. So this is what he says here. ويستثنى أيضا القسامة فإن الأيمان, so the oath, تكون في جانب المدعي مع اللوث. So the oath that I didn't kill this person, so this is a claim, I didn't do it, is accepted from mudda'i, the one advancing the claim, مع اللوث. Loth in this situation means circumstantial evidence. So there's no hard evidence, there were no witnesses, but there are some circumstantial evidence that would cast some suspicion on the person, but their claim that they didn't do it is accepted. وَالْلِعَانُ, and also a situation where husband or wife is accused of fornication or adultery. فإن الزوج يقذف فيلعن ويسقط عنه الحدود, or يلاعين ويسقط عنه الحدود. So a husband might be accused of fornication, but he's called to swear. So li'an is swearing an oath against yourself. I swear by Allah, I didn't fornicate. And so this relieves the person of the punishment, even though no proof is advanced to support this particular claim, or it might be the case of the wife. Allahumma salli ala Rasulillah. And the same goes for the wife. وكذا لو ادعى أنه وطأ في مدة الإيلاء. Similar, a claim that a person has engaged in. Well, this we'll leave this alone. This is a very rare situation, and it's doesn't have any relevance in the modern world. وترك الصلاة إذا قال صليت في البيت. Similarly, one who has left salah or is suspected of leaving prayer, and he says, I prayed at home. So a person's coming to the jama'ah, and then he stops coming. So people suspect this person stopped praying. And then he says, I prayed at home. I'm praying at home. He doesn't have to offer any proof. So he doesn't have to offer a selfie of himself. Allahu Akbar. May Allahu liman hamid. They're doing selfies at Hajj now, like I'm making tawaf right now. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. We heard yesterday from someone who just came back from Sacred Caravan how this is proliferating. But you're right at the Kaaba, you know. There's the black stone. I'm getting ready to start my Umrah. So I'm going to point to the black stone right now. They should ban cell phones. Or they shouldn't have to. We should not bring them with us. Because you wouldn't bring your phone to Salah, you know. Allahu Akbar. Rabbana lakal hamd. Allahu Akbar. So, Hajj and Umrah, Tawaf, Sa'i, those are all acts of worship. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You wouldn't take a selfie in Ramadan. Yeah, I'm fasting right now. Check it out. There's the fruits. I'm not eating it. Yeah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So in any case, so he says, Allahumma salli. So if the person says, I'm praying at home, then the person doesn't have to bring any burden of proof. وَمَانِعُ الزَّكَاةِ, a person who isn't paying their zakat or is suspected of not paying their zakat. إِذَا قَالَ أَخْرَجْتُهَا إِلَّا أَنْ يُنْكَرَ الْفُقَرَاءُ وَهُمْ مَحْسُورُونَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْبَيِّنَةِ. So a person who claims that they're paying their zakat doesn't have to prove it. So he says, however, if the poor people deny that claim, so he's the mudda'i, and so the claim is made against the poor people. So if the poor people say, you know, we didn't get any money from that guy, but with the condition, he says, وَهُمْ مَحْسُورُونَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْبَيِّنَةِ. If they're limited, so we're in a small village, and there are 5 or 6 poor people, so we can ask them. But if you're in a big city, and he could have paid over here, and no one over here knows, but if they're in a limited, restricted area, and the poor people in that area says, well, this guy, we see all this wealth, he didn't give us anything, then he has to prove that he paid his zakat. So this is from the wisdom of the Sharia. So we'll read that again. So he says, وَمَنْعُ الزَّكَاةِ إِذَا قَالَ أَخْرَجْتُهَا إِلَّا أَنْ يُنْكِرَ الْفُقَرَاءُ وَهُمْ مَحْسُورُونَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْبَيِّنَةِ. So the one who's not paying their zakat, and he says, so he makes a claim, I paid it. He doesn't have to prove it, except if the poor people deny that claim or reject that claim. He didn't pay anything. And we see all this wealth he has. Then he says, and their number is restricted or limited, وَهُمْ مَحْسُورُونَ فَعَلَيْهِ الْبَيِّنَةِ. Then he has to prove it. In that case. اللهم صل على رسول الله. وكذا لو ادعى الفقر وطلب الزكاة أعطي ولا يحلف. So similarly, if a person it appears should be paying zakat, claims that he's poor, therefore he's qualified to receive it, and he requests zakat is given to him, and he's not asked to swear an oath that he's telling the truth. بخلاف ما ادعى العيالة فإنه يحتاج إلى البينة. So this is different if he claims that he didn't pay it because he has dependents that he spent the money on, then he's required to provide proof. So if he says, you know, I didn't pay zakat, I have dependents that I had to spend my money on. In that case, he has to provide proof. ولو أكل في يوم الثلاثين من رمضان وادعى أنه رأى الهلال لم يقبل منه إن ادعى ذلك بعد الأكل فإنه ينفي عن نفسه stop there. إن ادعى ذلك بعد الأكل. Let me read that again. ولو أكل في يوم الثلاثين من رمضان وادعى أنه رأى الهلال لم يقبل منه إن ادعى ذلك بعد الأكل. So if a person eats on the 30th day of Ramadan And then they claim that they saw the hilal the previous night and they thought it was a 29-day month. If they claim that after they've eaten, then that claim is not accepted from them. So if they eat something and then they say, I saw the hilal, then that claim isn't accepted from them without any proof. So Fulan was with me. But he says, فإنه ينفي عن نفسه التعذير وإذا ادعى ذلك قبل الأكل قبل ولم يعذر. So this construction is a little tricky. So we'll start in the middle and go back. So he says, if he claims that he saw the hilal before he started to eat, in that case, he wards off any punishment from himself. So to summarize that, if a person on the 30th day of Ramadan is eating and they claim they saw the hilal, but they make their claim after they ate, then they're susceptible to a punishment, ta'zir, from the qadi or the hakim. But if they claim they saw the hilal before they started to eat, then it's accepted from them and they don't have to bring any burden of proof and they ward off any punishment from themselves, which indicates that the authorities can punish a person who eats in Ramadan, or in some of the madhahib they can imprison the person and deny them food all day. If a person's eating and they're hell-bent on eating, they can be put in jail during the daytime and deny food and water, and then they let them out at night. So you could eat all you want now. If you persist, we're going to put you back in jail and deny you any food and drink during the daytime. Yes. There's no compulsion. This means, but this term, excuse me. So if one does not wish to meet Allah and Allah is angry with the person, one should avoid this at all cost. ووقعت في القرآن العظيم في مواضع كثيرة. And he says this idea of the false oath that's used to usurp the rights of others, or that's given falsely, occurs. There are many instances of this in the Quran. منها قوله تعالى يحلفون بالله ما قالوا لقد قالوا كلمة الكفر. So in Surah Anfal it said that they swear by Allah that what they say is true, and they've spoken a word of kufr. And what they say involves kufr. So they say they believe, but what they've said in reality when they join and conspire with each other involve disbelief. So, but they swore an oath. يحلفون بالله ما قالوا وقالوا كلمة الكفر. Another instance, ومنها قوله تعالى إخبارا عن الكفرة. And so another instance, Allah Ta'ala informs on the true state of some of those who have rejected faith. ثم لم تكن فتنتهم إلا أن قالوا والله ربنا ما كنا مشركين. So he says, and then their claim is that they've said, well, we swear by Allah, our Lord, that we're not mushrikeen. And then the next verse, Allah says, انظر كيف كذبوا على أنفسهم. Look how they lie against themselves. وضل عنهم ما كانوا يعملون. عفوا وضل عنهم ما كانوا يفترون. And they become oblivious to the lies they've fabricated. So they're so steeped in their lies, they don't even realize they're lying anymore. But in reality, what they've spoken is false. ومنها قوله تعالى إن الذين يشترون بعهد الله وإيمانهم ثمنا قليلا. Verily those who purchase with an oath, with the covenant they've taken with Allah and with their oaths, a scanty price. In other words, they use their oath to get some worldly benefit. And Allah Ta'ala mentions that whatever benefit they get, no matter how great, it's insignificant with Allah. It has no meaning with Allah because it's taken falsely and unjustly. الآية ويستحب للحاكم أن يقرأ هذه الآية عند تحليفه للخصم لينزجر. So he says that it's desirable for a judge to recite this verse in the presence of two people who are advancing conflicting claims in order that they will be pulled back from falsehood. In other words, he recites this verse that they've purchased with the oath, covenant of Allah, and with their oaths a scanty price, to remind them that you're doing something that's incurring the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you better think twice before we go through with this. And then if they reject it, then they just, get out of my court, you scoundrel. The important thing here, and because all of these hadith, they have general principles of the religion, is the importance and of the rule of law. That we're a society that functions on the basis of laws, and not just on empty claims and anarchy. So anyone can claim anything, and there's no process to ascertain the veracity of the claim, or there's no process to check people from just blindly claiming anything they desire. I like that car, that's my car. Okay, where's the proof? Where's the proof of it? So we're a society of law, even though in some instances the person might not have proof, but they accede to the law. Okay, unfortunately I don't have anything to prove. Well, he has to keep the car. I'm sorry. Why? To prevent And so that one injustice, that person has the answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Yawm al-Qiyamah. But it prevents anyone from randomly claiming anything. So I like that car, that's my car. Okay, give it up. Give him the keys. No, you're making a claim, we need proof. If you have proof, then we'll move on it. If you don't, I'm sorry. And so like any law, there's a possibility of some injustice, but the law is established to prevent far, far greater injustices from occurring, which would be anyone randomly claiming anybody's car. So there might be a rare instance, and as we know from our urf, from our societal custom and general prevailing conditions, it will be a rare case that someone would claim a car is theirs, and if it's true that it's theirs, not have any paperwork to support their claim. So they can't even if the insurance card is lost, they can call the insurance company and get a duplicate. If they lost the title, they can call the title company and they could get a duplicate, or the state or whatever relevant authorities. The registration, they can go to DMV, they can get a new registration. So it would be very rare that a person would have absolutely no paperwork to prove that the car is indeed theirs. So the point being, the instance, in using this example we've used throughout, the instances where an injustice of someone keeping a car that really isn't theirs would be extremely rare. Whereas the injustice that's prevented from anyone or everyone just randomly claiming some car or some property as theirs, is the door is blocked to that. Now, someone had Mr. Choi, Mr. Wardo.
I'm okay. Thank you.
You're straight. Tayyib. So that's the upshot of this particular hadith, is to establish and affirm the rule of law, and is to prevent the usurpation of people's property and people's lives. As we mentioned, qasama. He killed a person, and no one knows who killed the person, but you're making that claim, and so this person ends up facing or exposed to capital punishment. So people would claim the property and they would claim the lives of others if there were no system of proof. ثم قال الحديث الرابع والثلاثون. Then he says the 34th hadith. وعن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. رواه مسلم. So the 34th hadith is related on the authority of the Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. May Allah be pleased with him. He said that I heard the Messenger of Allah, may the blessings and peace of Allah be upon him, say, whoever amongst you sees something wrong, let them change it with their hand. If they are unable to, then with their tongue. And if they are still unable to, then with their heart, meaning let them hate it in their heart. And that is the weakest level of faith, related by Imam Muslim. Al-Sharh, commentary, قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وذلك أضعف الإيمان, and that is the lowest level of faith. ليس المراد أن العاجز إذا أنكر بقلبه يكون إيمانه أضعف من إيمان غيره، وإنما المراد أن ذلك أدنى الإيمان، وذلك أن العمل ثمرة الإيمان، وأعلى ثمرة الإيمان في باب النهي عن المنكر أن ينهى بيده وإن قتل كان شهيدا. So he says that what's intended here is not intended that the one incapable of changing something with their hand, that their faith is lower than the faith of someone else. So it's not saying that person's faith in a general sense is weaker than the faith of someone else. This is a situational occurrence. So rather what's intended is that the lowest level of faith, by the lowest level of faith, is that action is the fruit of faith. And the highest fruit of faith in this particular area is to deny whatever is rejectionable with one's hand. So whoever sees something rejectionable, let them change it with their hand. So in this circumstance, that's the highest manifestation of faith, but it's not an indictment on the faith of that person if they're unable to change it. So it says, فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, if he is unable to, then with his tongue. If he is still unable to, then by hating it in his heart. That's the lowest level of faith. So in the sense that he was unable to manifest the highest level of faith, which is changing it with his hand, he's at the lower level. But in that particular situation, and not as a general testimony of his or her faith, because someone who didn't change it might not have been in a situation where it's even relevant. They didn't see it. So this person saw an injustice, but they feared if they spoke out against it, they might, if they tried to intercede physically, they might lose their life. So they refrained. And then they assessed, and they feared if they spoke out, similarly, they might lose their life. And so they refrained, but they hated it in their heart. Then in that context, that's the lowest level of faith. Whereas the person who didn't see this injustice, therefore was not in a situation where they might have changed it with their hand, or they might have spoken out against it. To make a comparison between the two would be improper and inappropriate, because this person wasn't even in a situation to do anything. And say, so if a person was, then in that situation they manifested the highest level of faith. Whereas the other person, in that situation, they manifested a lower level based on their personal ijtihad and assessment. And the other one a higher level based on his or her circumstances. And so each is not a comparative situation, it's an individual situation. So just clarify that. Person A and person B. Person A saw an injustice, felt that he or she couldn't do anything about it, he or she couldn't speak out about it, they hated it in their heart. Person B never saw it. And so to compare the faith of A and B in a general sense and say this person A's faith is lower because they only hated it in their heart is an inappropriate comparison. Now person A and person B both saw the injustice. Person A's ijtihad led them to believe that I can't do anything, I can't say anything, I might get killed. Person B said, I'm going to try to change it. If I do, I'll just be a martyr. I prefer martyrdom. So again, this isn't a general assessment of their faith because they both based their action on their ijtihad. It's just in this situation, person B manifested a higher level of faith because he or she chose to act and to try to change it with their hand. Whereas person A didn't. So just in that situation, B manifested a higher level of faith in terms of that particular wrong or that particular injustice, not in terms of, we can't say his or her faith is higher in a general sense. Wallahu a'lam. فقال اللهم صل على رسول الله ليس المراد أن العاجز إذا أنكر بقلبه يكون إيمانه أضعف من إيمان غيره وإنما المراد أن ذلك أدنى الإيمان وذلك أن العمل ثمرة الإيمان وأعلى ثمرة الإيمان في باب النهي عن المنكر أن ينهى بيده وإن قتل كان شهيدا. So if a person does decide they're going to try to change it, then they're a martyr. قال الله تعالى حاكيا عن لقمان يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانهى عن المنكر واصبر على ما أصابك. So Luqman says to his son, "O my son, establish regular prayer, command that which is good or right, and reject that which is rejectionable or wrong, and wasbir ala ma asabak, and patiently endure the hardship you might encounter because of that, because you commanded that which was wrong, or right rather, and forbade that which is wrong." So, wasbir ala ma asabaka inda dhalik, or fi sabili dhalik. So, patiently endure whatever hardship comes upon you as you enjoin that which is right and forbid that which is wrong. So this is a proof of those who say, even if you fear it's going to be difficult, or it might be even impossible, or nearly impossible, or apparently impossible, but you're going to try anyway, you have a right to do that. You don't have to just hate it with your heart. So this is wrong, I'm going to speak out against it. And speaking out against it, you might even lose your life. That's a position you can take. No one can say, "Oh, he or she was a fool. They should have just shut up and they should have been quiet." Because what's the shaheed? What does the shaheed do in our society? They inspire other people. The martyr inspires others with their courage, with their principle, with their conviction. And so people who might not have within themselves the courage to challenge certain things are inspired, and they say, they gave their life. This situation I know is not going to lead to my life being taken. I might lose my job, so be it. Bismillah. So they're inspired by the martyr. Malcolm X, how many people came to Islam because of Malcolm X? So his example and his willingness even to face death inspired people. So the martyr inspires people to transcend their normal limitations. طيب ويجب النهي على القادر باللسان ولم يسمع منه. So the one who's capable of speaking out against something is mandatory that they do so, even if no one's going to listen to them. Even if no one's going to listen to them. So it's your obligation to do something. So you do what you're obliged to do. If someone else is obliged to respond to what you do, that's on them. That's between them and Allah Ta'ala, not you and Allah. So I'm not speaking out against some of the moral ills in our society. No one's going to listen. Everyone does it. So what's the point? The point is you have a moral obligation. That's the point. That's the point. I'm not speaking out against all these people selling alcohol in their stores, all these Muslims in Oakland and San Francisco selling alcohol in their stores. They're going to do it anyway. So why should I say anything? Because you have a moral obligation. That's why. Their responding is between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you go into the store to buy some potato chips, which I hope you're not doing because they're not good for you. They're full of grease and salt. Anyway, but if you go in there to buy something and you see this big wall of alcohol, you say, why are you're Muslim? And then it says, هذا من فضل ربي. هذا موجود. I can take you. Like they say, this is from the bounty of my Lord. And they're talking about their store. But they have all this alcohol. They say, haram alayk. The one selling this is cursed. ملعون. فماذا بك يا هذا؟ أنت مجرم. عليك التوبة. توب إلى الله. اتق الله. That's your moral responsibility. Fear Allah. Repent. Get rid of this. Don't do it. You're cursed. So if they keep on selling, that's between them and Allah. So he says, وَيَجِبُ النَّهْيُ عَلَى الْقَادِرِ بِاللِّسَانِ وَإِن لَّمْ يُسْمَعَ مِنْهُ. Even if no one's going to listen to him, it's wajib to speak out against it. Nah.
I think sometimes, like,
Sorry.
it goes through our mind where we don't want to cause enmity or friction between, like, the Muslims, so we don't say anything about what maybe like other Muslims are doing, because maybe they might also be like, oh, like, why are you prying into my business, or things like that. It's like, oh, you should mind your own business, and this is between me and Allah, or something like that. So it's like, sometimes it's like, I feel like we don't say a lot of things because of those reasons.
Those who sin publicly, that's if someone sins privately. They're drinking in their house. You shouldn't tell people, oh, they're drinking in their house. They're publicly, you're on a main thoroughfare. Anyone from the general public can come in there and see what you're doing. So if one who sins publicly should be publicly rebuked for their sin. Now that doesn't mean just screaming out, but you should speak to the person, and if there's enmity, there's enmity. If there's enmity, there's enmity. But someone who's private, or you know someone's struggling and they're trying to repent, and then that's a different circumstance. And so you might just gently encourage that person, or just leave them alone. You know, I know his brothers and sisters, and they're all pious people, and they're working on him, and they said he's right on the verge. So you don't want to go and just make him get stubborn. But so you have to weigh out. But generally, as a general principle, one who sins publicly, there's no harm in rebuking them publicly, because they're not respecting you. So why should you respect them? In other words, this person is publicly selling alcohol. This person is publicly violating some fundamental rules of Islamic whatever dress. So this guy is wearing short pants and walking around the street like that. So that person is showing no respect for the Islamic code of dress as it relates to men. So he's not trying to cover himself to his knees. So, and he's doing it publicly. So if you just step to that person, it's no harm in that. And again, generally, there might be some things you know that might cause you to be more restrained. But as a general principle, if a person is showing no respect for you, and no respect for Islam, and no respect for Allah and His Messenger, then that person's fair game, as a general rule. If they're doing something privately and Allah has covered it up, it's not right for us to reveal what Allah has covered up. Or if they're in the process, they're trying to work through some things. But if they're arrogantly just flaunting basic rules and principles, we should be firm. Or if someone's struggling, or someone's wrestling with something, then we should be gentle. So we should weigh out the circumstances. But as a general rule, if you're going to be arrogant, because there al-Muslim wa ibadur rahman alladhina yamshun ala al-ardi hawna. The servants of the merciful are those who walk humbly on the earth. That's a general rule. But in the face of arrogance, tyranny, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So honor and authority is for Allah, His Messenger, and the believers, but the hypocrites don't realize it. So in the face of arrogance and tyranny, we shouldn't just, okay, Mr. Tyrant, it's all right. Ittaqillah, you should fear Allah. You know? So someone's abusing their spouse, beating their wife, and just publicly flaunting it. You shouldn't Muslims should know better. No.
You should fear Allah. You know, I'm going to get some brothers. We come and do what you're doing to your wife if you don't stop. There's izz. There's a time for humility. There's a time for izz. And so you try to balance it out, inshallah. Tayyib. What time is it? I might have to. Okay. Let me wrap this up. Tayyib. فقال, so his point, he says, يجب النهي على القادر باللسان وإن لم يسمع منه. So it's wajib for a person who's capable of speaking out against an injustice or wrong with their tongue to do so, even if they're not going to be listened to. كما إذا علم أنه إذا سلم لا يرد عليه السلام فإنه يسلم. Just as a person knows this Muslim isn't going to return my salam, they still have to give the salam because that's their obligation. And the refusal to return it is on the one. So you see this guy coming, and he's one of those types of Muslims that if your beard isn't long enough or your pants aren't short enough, they're not going to give you salam. That's happened to me. I met some Muslim brothers, so happy. And they're like, oh, you're one of those Sufi, whatever. Then return salam. So if you think you're running into that, you still have to give salam. That's your obligation. They're not returning it. That's between them and Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. That's between them and Allah. You're giving the salam is between you and Allah. So you make sure that you're right with Allah. Make sure that we're right with Allah. فإن قيل. So very quickly. فإن قيل الإنكار بالقلب ليس في تغيير المنكر فما معنى قوله فبقلبه. So if it's said that one who rejects something that's wrong with their heart, then they're not changing it. And so the obvious wording of the hadith, من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده. If you see something wrong, then let him change it with his tongue, with his hand. فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه. If they're unable to, let them change it with their tongue. فإن لم يستطع. If they're unable to, فبقلبه, let them, if you follow the grammatical structure of the hadith, let them change it with their heart. So it says, if you just confine the change to your heart, you haven't changed anything. So this is the objection he's responding to. فإن قيل, if it said, الإنكار بالقلب ليس في تغيير المنكر. This doesn't involve any change to that which is wrong. فما معنى قوله تعالى فبقلبه. Then what does it mean? Let him change it with his heart. قال فجوابه, the answer to this, أن المراد, what's meant or intended, أن ينكر ذلك ولا يرضاه ويشتغل بذكر الله, that he rejects that and is not pleased with it, and that he preoccupies himself with the remembrance of Allah. فقد مدح الله تعالى العاملين بذلك فقال, and Allah has praised in the Quran those who do that. وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا. When they pass by unacceptable talk, they pass by it, so they didn't change it. They pass by it with the honor intact, and the exegetes say by hating it and rejecting it in their hearts. So this is a Quranic substantiation of that. Now, here's a question I ask all of you. If you hate it in your heart, have you changed it?
Within yourself, a little bit. That means one person hates it. One person less.
So at a metaphysical level, you've changed it. Because as Atif said, this exists in a context. It's like Dr. Fatima Jackson was talking about epigenetics. That the environment that a gene exists in, an environment of stress, can have a transgeneration impact on how that gene functions. And so by just changing the environment that wrong exists in, you've changed it because that wrong doesn't exist in isolation. So you've changed it at a metaphysical level. But at another level, you keep alive is the embers are burning in your heart. And when your circumstance changes and you're able to speak out, you'll speak out. And when your circumstance changes and you're able to change it, then you work to physically change it. And in that sense, it's changed in the sense that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, chronology has no relevance. It only has a relevance with us. So at the level of ultimate reality, you've changed it. Because eventually, when the circumstance allows you, you're going to change it. But if you don't hate it in your heart, even when the circumstance changes, you're not going to change it. That's why the things we see that are rejectionable morally, we should hate them. We shouldn't just go along to get along. So, people drinking, smoking marijuana, engaging in sexual conduct that's morally reprehensible by the standards of our religion, in my heart, I'm not comfortable and happy with that. And so if I could work for a change one day, I'm going to work to change it. Just as people who do things we don't like, they worked and they changed it. I don't like the fact that I can't drink. So I'm going to work to undo prohibition. And I don't care what these Christian people say, right? The Christian and temperance societies. So they work to change it, to be consistent with their values. Why can't we work to change things to be consistent with our values? As long as we confine ourselves to the constitutional frameworks available to us. So the people who advocate for homosexual marriage, they didn't like the society that prohibited it. And it was prohibited, right? And so they worked to change it. So people say, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to use legal channels available to me to change it. What's wrong with that? But if you say, oh, it's all cool, it's all good, this is the 21st century, go along to get along. And then we see this situation evolving around us, and we don't say anything. We don't even foster any discomfort in our hearts. We're not being true to ourselves. So this is a controversial issue. I'm not saying physically harming people, psychologically tormenting people, but working like many Catholics and others to advance a public morality that's consistent to our values. And if the person feels I can't do anything, I'll lose my job, this is a very unpopular stand now, then the person just, in their heart, I'm not comfortable with this. Wallahu alamul musta'an. Allah knows best, and His help is sought in all things. Yes, Fintan.
I was just going to mention that even when you hold something in your heart, even if you're not going to change it with your hand, you're not going to say anything, but you're still like stern about it in your heart, that's in a sense like the power of prayer. Because you know how you talk about the vice, something or other, like the atmosphere of the time, how it affects you?
Right. Huh?
Is that called again, the vice, something?
What?
The atmosphere of the time.
Oh, the zeitgeist.
Yeah, like the zeitgeist. You know how the zeitgeist affects you.
Yeah.
Well, if people have it in their heart, like, no, this is wrong, you're gonna feel it if you come and you're doing something wrong. You're gonna feel the vibes of all the people that are holding it in their heart. Like, no, that's not right. So I'm just saying that holding it in your heart can have a big effect
on the zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's all, not all, but largely it's spiritual energy. And what sort of spiritual energy are we projecting? So is it positive or is it negative? is it consistent with prophetic values and virtues, or is it inconsistent with prophetic values and virtues? And as Fenton says, that affects the zeitgeist. And we take one question from online because I'm supposed to be in a board meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yusra asks, or says, many people say in relation to this particular hadith that we can't force ourselves on people, and that there are other hadiths which will contradict this hadith. How can we address these types of comments?
Well, assuming forcing ourselves on people goes back to what Adil was talking about, that we don't impose our values on people or things. First of all, and there's a note here that might provide some insight, and it's just a note. This is how we relate as individuals to something that's wrong. من رأى منكم منكرا, whoever amongst you sees something wrong, munkar, something incompatible with the values and legal system of Islam. That's munkar. So this hadith is about how we respond to wrong. And so it mentions many options. So it's always been understood individually. We can oppose something that's wrong even though we believe we might lose our life. In that case, we're shaheed. If we fear we might lose our life, we can refrain from actively opposing it with action. We could speak out against it. So we see a guy and we see a 9mm handgun stuffed in his belt, and he's taking a lady's pocketbook. So we say, man, if I go and intervene, I'll probably get shot. Tell you. Then, but I should at least yell, hey, the cops are coming, you better get out of here and leave that lady alone. And that might be enough. But I might think, so I'm across the street, he could still shoot me. But, or so he said, I shouldn't say anything. But I should hate this, that was wrong. So it's how the individual responds to wrong. One person might respond one way, one person might respond another way. So this isn't a case of just making believe the wrong doesn't exist. And so therefore, I don't want to impose myself on someone. If someone's snatching someone's pocketbook and it's an old lady and you can help her, you're not imposing yourself on the thief. You're preventing the thief from doing something he or she shouldn't be doing. So similarly, it's something munkar. It's not just something neutral, or it's not something that's shubha, something questionable by the principles and rulings of the religion. It's something wrong by the principles and rulings of the religion. Someone can leave. Something prevails. They're like, you know what? I'm making hijrah. So they could respond in that way. So in terms of imposing ourselves, it's can I manifest my values without suffering a loss that cannot be justified? If I speak out against this, I'll lose my job. Right? The guy at what's the big company spoke out against the gay marriage and lost his job. He was the CEO of one of these. Who was it? Huh? Mozilla. Firefox, right? Was he imposing himself? He saw something that he believed was wrong. He merely expressed an opinion. And so he wasn't imposing himself. He wasn't imposing himself on people who might be involved in a marriage like that. He's saying, this law, I don't feel is right. And my values and my principles don't allow me to endorse it. Right? So he was responding to something he deemed to be wrong. And so in doing that, was he imposing himself? If that's the case, then the people, as we said, who might have always wanted to get married to someone of the same gender or same sex? Were they imposing themselves on the people historically who felt that was wrong? And the law and the legal system was interpreted to consistent with their values and their principles? Did they impose themselves? So I don't think it's a question if we deem something to be munkar, to be rejectionable by the standards of our religion. If we speak out against that, we're imposing ourselves. And if someone does, then it's time for them to contemplate making hijrah, to leave and go to an environment where they don't feel speaking in the defense of my values, which have historically been accepted as sound, is an imposition on someone. If we feel that way, we have to seriously. So I feel if I speak out against drinking or alcohol or bestiality or pornography, I'm not imposing myself on someone. And I don't care how they interpret the First Amendment. I'm interpreting it differently. I'm interpreting the way it has historically been interpreted, which is what? Was the famous example of the limits of freedom of speech. You can't yell in a crowded theater. So at the point where we feel that if I cry fire, or if someone can't cry fire in a situation that warrants it, then something's wrong. Or that someone can cry fire in a crowded theater and get away with it, and I can't condemn them because that's their freedom of speech, then it's time for me to start to think about where I should reside. Because why? People are going to get harmed. So if I can't stop you from harming people, then I need to start making some hard decisions. Wallahu alam, wa musta'an. And that's freedom of speech. And if I feel I can't talk about these things, right? If I feel I can't talk about BDS, I can't talk about divestment from Israel, because the California State Senate has passed a law that makes it illegal, and my school will lose their funding. Right? This is what they attempted in New York State recently. And that's a foreign country. Then I need to start thinking about some serious choices. Wallahu alam wal musta'an. Naam, Fintan.
But I think it has to do with being stern with the unbelievers and merciful to believers.
Well, there's time to be merciful to unbelievers. That's another issue. So how you
like carrying on in a bunch of ways that you have to be more stern with people like that.
We mentioned that earlier. So there's a time for وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا, the servants of the merciful walk humbly in the earth. There's a time for compassion and humility. يَا عَيْشَ عَلَيْكَ بِالرِّفْقِ فإن الله يعطي بالرفق ما يعطي بالعنف والشدة. Aisha, be gentle. Allah gives through gentleness what He doesn't give through force. That's another thing. So that's more form and not actual content. I should say this as mercifully, as gently, as wisely as possible. And there's a time for izzah. وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ وَلِرَسُولِهِ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلَكِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah has izzah, as does His messenger, as do the believers. They have honor, nobility, strength. So we're constantly balancing how we approach things. So we're not impervious to our time, our environment, our political climate, to the point where there's only one way, it's full speed ahead. Get out the bulldozer. But in terms of the content of what we stand for. There's some things that are immutable. And when we feel we can't talk about them, we can't offer counsel concerning them, then if we're going to be morally, have any kind of moral integrity, then we have to seriously start thinking about what we're doing. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk wal 'asr innal insana lafi khusr إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالصبر بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما عملا متقبلا خالصا لوجهك الكريم. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والغنى والعفاف والمغفرة إنك على كل شيء قدير وإنك سبحانه بحمد جدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.